Here it is. I'm videoing this. This is weird, and I almost just cried. And Jim and I may have argued just a little bit about camera placement. And I mean, and this is going to change. So if this is bad quality, well, because I have great art right behind me that I bought specifically for this. But now I'm wondering if it might be too, I don't know. You guys have to tell me. Here we are. I mean, I have these beautiful bookshelves that are full and look great, but it might be too busy and too distracting. But here, hi, yeah, this is the Nothin But Fine studio. Welcome. I must really like y'all because I hate this. Lord, bless it. Just bless it, Lord. If you say it's okay, Lord, then we'll do it and we'll go on. But if this isn't what you want, just let me know, because I'm stepping out. I'm stepping out doing this because I do not want to be videoed. That's why I liked podcasting, because it's just me and the mic in here and I get to do what I want and not wear lipstick. And I have on lipstick. I have on a lot of makeup, actually, and you really can't tell. So if you see me looking like this, it means I'm looking at myself. And because this is my computer screen, this is like a giant FaceTime call. So welcome to the first one. So today, hi, we're back. And so we've been in, we've been in Matthew, of course, we've been in the Beatitudes. And this is the end of the Beatitudes. So this is the end of kind of a slower pace that we've been going through. But we have, and there's more than one verse in this one. So there will be 3 verses that we're going to look at today, and they all kind of fit in together, okay? I've also got the New Living and the Message out because it's just so good. It's not that it's so good and it's better. It's just that it's different. And it's more of a pep talk, if you will, than just the regular versions. Well, let's just jump right in. So the last one is I'll read it in the NIV first. Y'all know this is my NIV. It's my favorite. I can't pick it up. Okay. All right, here it is. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Now let's listen to it in the New Living Translation. It says, God blesses those who are persecuted for doing right, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. God blesses you when people mock you and persecute you and lie about you and say all sorts of evil things against you because you are my followers. Be happy about it. Be very glad, for a great reward awaits you in heaven. And remember, the ancient prophets were persecuted in the same way. See, that's a little easier to listen to, isn't it? And then here's the Message. You're blessed when your commitment to God provokes persecution. The persecution drives you even deeper into God's kingdom. See, that's so good, because that truly is what persecution does. It drives you deeper into God's kingdom, into His presence, into a relationship with Him. Because when you're at a point, well, let me just say this: I would imagine that when you're in a point when that's all you've got is the Lord, it's good. And it makes you able to do this rejoicing that He's calling for at the end, right? Okay, so not only that, count yourselves blessed every time people put you down or throw you out or speak lies about you to discredit me. What it means is that the truth is too close for comfort and they are uncomfortable. You can be glad when that happens. Give a cheer even, for although they don't like it, I do, and all heaven applauds. And know that you are in good company. My prophets and witnesses have always gotten into this kind of trouble. I really love this. I really love the message right here on that. So let's look at some things. Here's the other thing. My first thought was, if the world isn't hassling you, you must not be doing it right. And I was thinking about, our current state of not the world in general, but just us in our little United States bubble. If we're not being harassed and made fun of and mocked and whatnot, are we really doing what we're supposed to be doing? Is our righteousness really what are we doing a good job at being righteous? Are we living the way that these Beatitudes have said? No, we're not. The other thing is, I don't think that verse 10, blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, I don't think that applies to, it sure doesn't apply to me. Because I have not been persecuted. Because let me tell you what persecuted means in the Greek, okay? It's diókó. It's dioko, but there are the little things on the O's. To put to flight, pursue by implication, to persecute, aggressively chase, like a hunter pursuing a catch. Pursue with all haste, earnestly desiring to overtake. I have not been persecuted in that way. Chances are you haven't either. If you are seeing this, you probably haven't. Now, if you have, please, by all means, reach out, Emily@nothinbutfine.com. Please email me and tell me about it. I want to hear this. Okay. I want to hear your story about how you did that. But here's the thing. I've never been persecuted where that someone was pursuing me with the earnest desire to overtake me and to bring me down. I've never been persecuted in that way. So this doesn't apply to me at this point. I wouldn't think that I would ever, I don't foresee Christians in the United States being persecuted to that effect. Now, in my lifetime, is it coming? Absolutely. Are we inching towards that? Sure. But I think that church right now and believers right now are kind of, there are little pockets. I hate to generalize, but I think that we are in a time where we're kind of watered down, where we're not doing exactly what we think what we know that the Lord would have us do, because of different things. Because we've been told, and theology has been watered down, the Bible has been watered down. We hear things and things are taken out of context, and so we think that we're doing the right thing when if we really would study it and look at it, then we're not. And so I think that is why we're not really, and the United States has never really had this kind of persecution of Christians, of believers. Yes, we've had persecution of other groups and other things, but Christians have not been persecuted in this way. So verse 10 does not apply to me. Thank goodness, right? So you go, well, I don't. Move on, Emily, move on. So, if that's you, great. Now, but here, the next, immediately following up, he's going to bring us all in, okay? It's a little more specific here, because in 11, it says, blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you. Again, we've already eliminated ourselves from that persecute you. But blessed are you when people insult you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Now that we can get into. That we can really look at and say, okay, I have definitely, you have probably experienced some of that. I have personally definitely felt a kind of, that kind of insulting, and we want to say persecution, but that in fact is not persecution, as the Greek word is. That's not right. Insult in the Greek is reproach, to disgrace, mock, insult, cast blame, or create shame, which was interesting. It was interesting to read that, create shame. It's viewing someone as culpably guilty and therefore deserving punishment. And this can be based on fact or incorrect assumptions. So it's unjust. So in Matthew 5:11, it means that it's unjust. It's not fair if you're defaming someone, and that's not right. And let me, because if you have ever been in a friend group, or in kind of right on the edge of a group, and you see yourself not being in, because in high school, and I'm going to go back to high school because it's easier to talk about that. But in high school, I was not a big going out kind of person. I didn't drink, I didn't do all the things, and I went to church all the time, and stayed, and quite honestly, I'm obviously, I've said, I'm kind of an introvert, and I'm just fine at home reading a book or watching a movie or doing something else, or hanging out with my family. I don't have a problem doing that, and I like it. So there were always things that I'm like, why didn't anyone call me and tell me about this party? Why wasn't I invited? Why didn't I get to go? And my mom always like, because they know that you don't. And I always was like, oh, for Pete's sake, Mama, you're just saying that. But I know that it's true, because I had a conversation in college with someone that I was like, listen, why don't you boys, it was a boy. I was like, why don't y'all, I mean, why don't y'all like invite me to do stuff with you guys? Why do I not get, am I, what am I, ugly? Am I not fun? And he was like, no, nobody wants, you're not that kind of girl. And I'm like, forgive me, mother, if you're listening. Yes, I am. I could be. And he was like, no, Emily, because listen, this is, I tried to be sinful. I wanted it. I wanted to feel included. Not that I wanted to be sinful. Let me take that back. I wanted to be included. I wanted to be, the most popular girl on the block who had all these boyfriends and all these party invites and was always busy. That's what I wanted. I mean, and don't we all want that? Don't we all want to feel that inclusion and to feel like we're liked and desired and wanted to be around? We all kind of want that. And this friend of mine, I guess I was a junior, and he was like, no, that's not you. I know, I hear what you're saying, but you don't really mean it. And that's not you. I was so disappointed. Come on, let's just go make out. No, I don't want to. So that's the thing, though. That kind of separation, and I wasn't being insulted. Now, maybe mocked. Maybe, oh, little Miss Goody Two Shoes, woo, that kind of thing. Maybe that's a little bit of what it was, but it's because I knew Jesus, and my life showed it. Obviously, as I've just told you, I mean, was it because I was so pious and not necessarily looking to get into some trouble, right? So that's the thing. I mean, Jesus shone through me. Even when here's the crazy thing, even when I may not have wanted him to, he shone through me and protected me from mistakes. Look at that. When we're fighting against. And it was only in that one moment that I was like, there were only moments where I was like, no, I want to be bad. I want to do all the fun things that everyone else is doing. And that moment, that's what I wanted. But as soon as I got back home, I was like, oh, well, here we go. I'm going to get up and go to church in the morning. So there are those times when you're left out and when you feel sad and you're lonely because of the choices you've made in the life that you live, right? Right. So the next thing that I looked up was the rejoice and be glad. So rejoice means obviously rejoice, glad, delight in God's grace, to experience God's grace. If you're rejoicing, you're experiencing God's grace. I mean, yeah. That should be reason enough to rejoice, right? Well, here's the other thing. Be glad. Okay, we do not know what be glad means, because be glad, well, in the Greek, be glad means to exalt, to rejoice greatly, to be full of joy, getting so glad one jumps in celebration, to boast because to boast because so experientially joyful, rejoice exceedingly. So rejoice is kind of in this. And why? Because we've got God's grace. We're delighting in God's grace. We're rejoicing and we're experiencing God's grace. That is wrapped up in being glad. Now, because I think, oh, I'm so glad. That's like I feel like glad is a step below being happy. But according to the Greek word here, that's not what it is. It's like being so happy that you kind of want to jump a little bit. You're excited. Woohoo! You get excited, you want to jump a little bit, right? So being glad is happier than you think it is. Okay? Now, here's the thing. You can see all throughout the Bible, New Testament, Old Testament, both. I mean, there are lots of instances of suffering, of trials, of this persecution. You can see persecution. You can see the mocking. I mean, David talked a lot about it in the Psalms, right? I mean, we went through some of that a little bit. I mean, all those laments where he was like, they're talking bad about me. They're mocking me. They want me to die. David, we talked about that a little bit. There's a lot of suffering and trials and things, and we have to go through those things. And I love Romans 5. I marked it. Let me find it. So Romans 5, once I start reading it, 5:3, you're going to go, oh, I've heard this before. Starting in verse 5. Not only so, but we also rejoice in our sufferings. See, there's that rejoice. Because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not disappoint us because God has poured out his love into our hearts by the Holy Spirit, whom he has given us. You see, at just the right time, when we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. There you go. That's part of the reason why we have to go through part of this suffering. One of my very favorite books in the Bible that I found, and I'm sure I've mentioned it before. I know I have. If you've ever listened to me do any other kind of study on any other Bible study, if you've ever sat with me even if I wasn't leading it, this verse always ends up popping up. But I found it when Bo was sick. So right after his first surgery, right before we really even knew what was going to happen. We knew radiation was coming. This was before his second surgery. This is 1 Peter 1, starting in verse 6. In this you greatly rejoice. There's that rejoice again. Though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief and all kinds of trials, these have come, so that your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may be proved genuine and may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. So coming right back to Matthew, because I mean, this goes along with it so well. It just really kind of, here's again, layer upon layer upon layer. We're understanding all the things because it's telling the same story. Guys, it's not like, I mean, Matthew and Paul, I mean, they were, and Peter, they didn't have the same style, reading their work, you can't, they say things differently, but they all have the same message. They all say the same thing, and each thing just layers one upon the other and explains it. So it says, I mean, this talking about that 1 Peter verse right there, I mean, it's just blessed are those. I mean, you're going to rejoice and be glad because great is your reward in heaven. And part of that reward is you're bringing glory to the Lord. So when you're bringing glory to the Lord, what does that mean? If we go back to the message, it says, that they're applauding. You're blessed when your commitment to God provokes persecution. The persecution drives you even deeper into God's kingdom. When you've gone through trials, that's where you're going to be, on your face before the Lord, begging for comfort, begging for help, begging for strength. That's what you're going to do, okay? Not only that, count yourselves blessed every time people put you down or throw you out or speak lies about you to discredit me. What it means is that the truth is too close for comfort and they are uncomfortable. You can be glad when that happens. Give a cheer even. For though they don't like it, I do, and all heaven applauds. That's how the Message says it. All of heaven is applauding. As you go through these trials, as you put your faith into practice, heaven applauds. And I feel like that's taking some license here in this translation. But man, I don't know if it's true or not, but man, does that feel good. Is that a good thought? But whether or not all of heaven is applauding, we know that Jesus is. We know that God is saying, yes, that's what I meant. I'm so proud of you. Keep it up, because he's going to send in and help. Hebrews 11, I would argue that Hebrews is the best book of the Bible. It's my favorite. I really love it. What is going on in here? Oh, I have a pen. It's in the way. I've got too many markers. But Hebrews 11, I think is so. Not only is Hebrews 11 one of my favorite book of the Bible, really is, and I say that, and every time I go, well, maybe it's not. It's only because I haven't dug in there lately. But every time I get back in there, I'm like, oh yes, it is. I was right. And I think that chapter 11 is one of the best ones in the whole Bible. So Hebrews 11, it starts out, it's often referred to as the Hall of Faith. And it starts out with all these people that have, definitely gone through some suffering and endured some things. Like Abraham is listed. And he and Sarai, Abraham and Sarah, waited for a child. So Sarah had gone through infertility. And in that time, that was when your worth as a woman was through your childbearing. And so she went through all of that kind of stuff. And then God blessed her, and she had faith, and she was able to have a son, who we know as Isaac. So there are all these people who have done, like Noah. Noah had to trust God because he'd never heard of rain, never seen it. And they said, this is water's going to fall from the sky. You got to do it. Noah was counted righteous by God. That means something, doesn't it? I want God to think I'm righteous, don't you? So we've got all of these, and halfway through, is it halfway? Or a little more than halfway. In verse 32, it says, and what more shall I say? I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again, as Lazarus, that's Mary and Martha, and their brother Lazarus. Others were tortured and refused to be released so that they might gain a better resurrection. Some faced jeers and flogging, while still others were changed and put in prison. Okay? They were stoned, they were sawed in two, they were put to death by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins. This is persecution. These were people that were really persecuted, okay? Destitute, persecuted, and mistreated, the world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains, and in caves and holes in the ground. These were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised. God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect, would they be made complete, in other words. And we have that hope. So, this is what Hebrews is saying. it lists all these folks. Some folks that got the promise, that received what God had promised them, who made it through, even though there were trials and there were insults and there were hard times. Then there are all these folks that had to endure worse and did not receive their promise, who were persecuted and martyred, who didn't get it all because the Lord decided, well, let me not say it that way. They were going to get their reward with him. Okay? Now, the cool thing is at the end of, well, in the next chapter of Hebrews, chapter 12, verse 1, says, therefore. What's that therefore? That's what you always have to ask when you see therefore. What therefore? What's the therefore? What's the therefore? How many times could I say therefore in the last 10 seconds? That therefore is saying, because of all of that, because we have these people that lived and did and got their promises answered, their prayers answered, and then we've got also all these people that were too good for earth, as God said, as the writer says, they weren't here, but we have these two groups of people, and God says, Matthew says in Matthew, it says, these prophets, as Jesus is saying, and by the way, they were persecuted for the time, your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. That's in this group of people, right? The ones that we've just mentioned. So we've got this going on. And so this therefore to remind us that we have this group of people that are in heaven. It says, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, those people that have gone before us, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinful men, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. That's what Jesus did. And we have all these people that have lived before. We have all these examples of these giants of the faith, of just regular everyday saints. We have all these things that of people who have endured terrible things. And because, therefore, we have that surrounding us, and that knowledge and knowing of their faith, that should give us strength to push through and make it, to run the race with perseverance. And the thing is, it dawned on me as I realized, because sometimes, we read the Bible and we don't really get it. Or we miss like the most elementary things about it. Because it dawned on me while I was reading this that, oh my gosh, Jesus is telling the disciples this, and he hasn't been persecuted at all. Like, they have no idea what he's talking about. They really have no idea what's coming. They hadn't seen anything yet. I read a commentary. Well, it's like, they had seen the way that John the Baptist, and I can't remember, I told you guys a long time ago, but I've forgotten what I said. I don't know if when Jesus gave the Sermon on the Mount, if John had been beheaded or not. I can't remember right now. I should have looked that up, but I didn't. So even if he had been persecuted and had already been beheaded, then the Jews were used to being mistreated. They knew that. They were under Roman rule, but they wasn't like being back with the Egyptians. So these disciples really didn't have any idea what was coming. They didn't know. And can you imagine that Jesus is sitting there saying, Blessed are you who are persecuted for me. Changes things, doesn't it? He knew what was going to happen. And he knew that they had no idea. And he was already trying to prepare them for what was to come. But he's saying, remember, you've got all these people that have gone before you. You've got all these people that have gone before you to show you how to go through this. And look, this isn't his inner monologue, according to me. Can you imagine? He's just sitting there and he's like, you have no idea what I'm about to go through. Of all the ridicule and shame and for real being persecuted, being pursued by people that want to kill me. And they're ultimately going to win. But I'm doing it for you, and I'm going to overcome. And you have my example as well. It just blows my mind the things that Jesus was able to teach and preach, all while knowing what was coming. Huh. Shouldn't we? I mean, obviously, I don't really know what's coming, but what is it that the saying that everybody says, but did you die? Well, no. We can endure. We can press on. We can, and then we should also be rejoicing and be glad. And I know that's hard. It's so hard. If you really want to get into, suffering and all that kind of stuff, read the book of James. Joy comes in the morning. I don't think he says that, but... And now James has gone completely out of my head, and I can't even say what it is. Go look up James. Read that, would you? Check out the show notes. Maybe I'll get it when I type that out. It's only going to last for a little while. And even if you do die, and I hope none of us do, but we will one day, you're going to wake up with Jesus. And man, what can be better than... What is better than getting to heaven and Jesus standing there waiting for you going, oh, I'm so proud of you. You did it. Thank you. Thank you for what you've done. Thank you for bringing me some glory. Thank you. Can you imagine the Lord thanking you? Can he? Can the Lord thank you? I hope you can. I hope you will. And I hope you feel like he can, or that he will. Because Jesus loves you.